Welcome to Finterpret, a series on academic papers by Center for Analytical Finance at ISB. I am Prasanna Tantri. I am a finance faculty at ISB. With me, I have Nishant Kashyap. He's a senior PhD student and also an accomplished researcher. We've done 2 episodes of this already. Thanks a lot for tons of feedback that we've got. We worked on it. Last time we worked on our body language. So this time we have worked on ambience.
Yeah.
If you see, we replaced history books with finance books. Although we have not read any one of them, at least I have not. I don't know about you. Just to look good. But then we've been told it makes sense. We also have a director today who is telling us, how many bottles we should have, how many glasses we should have, and so on. So coming to the topic. So we were discussing this paper published in the Journal of Finance on deposit franchise. So in episode 1, we presented a puzzle. We just said something which is contrary to what we know about how banks operate. Everybody knows that in the US, loans are long term. Banks give long term loans where they don't reset interest rates. These are fixed interest loans. If you give a 30-year loan, interest rates don't change in those 30 years. Whereas deposits of banks, 60-70% of the deposits are short term. That means whenever there is a change in interest rates, these deposit rates keep changing. So therefore, it's easy to see in this scenario, if the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank, equivalent of our RBI, if they increase interest rate, like what has happened now, they increase interest rate from 1% to 5%, what should happen? Banks should lose money because their interest income does not change, their interest expense will change, so they should lose money. This is what conventional wisdom is, and we showed, the paper shows, the data suggests otherwise. There is no change in, the red line which we keep showing to our viewers every time, shows they have some kind of a flat income stream, despite Federal Reserves, that the line on the top, interest rates keep changing. Now, do they have some insurance or something? What's going on? This is what we explored in episode 2, and you answered in episode 2 that they have this secret weapon called deposit insurance, deposit franchise. What is this deposit franchise? Deposit franchise is something they have earned. It's like an intangible asset. They have earned by marketing, marketing effort, having good branches, AC, giving coffee to customers, relationship building, and so on. What it has earned is, the depositors of banks do not care much for regular fluctuation in interest rate. Even when interest rate go up, even if the bank does not increase interest rate proportionately, they don't withdraw. This is the asset that banks, this deposit franchise gives this power to the banks, and that is why they are sort of insulated. This is what we learned. Have I summarized correctly? And one of the comments I think you planted, that people have told me I should not keep nagging you. Maybe you planted it, fair enough, but we have to act on all the comments. So this I'll try not to this time. But then, but you just told me before we started the show that paper has another. This is not the end of the paper. It actually turns conventional understanding of riskiness of banks on its head. That's what you told me. Because what I know from textbooks is that if a bank has equal tenure of liabilities and assets, that means it has short-term assets and short-term liabilities, there is no interest rate risk, because this will change, that will change equally, no interest rate risk. They are perfectly hedged, is what I have been taught. You think that's wrong? That's what this paper says?
The paper says that conventional wisdom is wrong.
In fact, the way you said is, what is risk is not risk, what is not risk is risk. I was really totally confused. So can you explain?
So this conventional wisdom about matching asset
and liability.
If you have short-term deposit on the liability side, you should fund only short-term loans on the asset side. That is what this paper is trying to. That particular understanding is what this paper is trying to break, supported with data.
Okay. So you are saying having short-term assets and short-term liabilities itself is
risky.
Why is it risky?
So I can explain that using an example.
Sure.
So the readers would remember this.
So you're not going to tell us that it's like a fixed rate swap, you exchange fixed with floating.
No. I'm going to stay away from that.
Okay, you're going to stay away.
So I've learned
that much transformation has
that.
happened. Okay, go ahead.
So readers would remember this particular balance sheet from our previous 2 videos. Here we have long-term assets, which are long-term loans that banks extend, and short-term loans on the asset side. And on the liability side, we have savings deposit, and equity capital is assumed to be 0. And we have discussed why we do that in the previous. episode. So now let us say for this particular balance sheet where there are only short-term loans.
Yeah, in the previous episode there was long-term loan and short-term loan. Now you're saying in this example, let's assume there is a bank which has short-term deposits and short-term loans. So conventionally they don't have interest.
They don't have interest rate.
Right. You're saying they're risky.
Yes.
Now you have to prove that they're risky.
So
you're under pressure.
Yes. Yes. So far we have talked about interest rate increase.
Yes.
What we are going to discuss here is that interest rate decrease is a problem. Is a sort of problem here.
Right.
So let us understand it with a very simple example.
Sure.
So let us say that the interest rate that the banks can earn on their short-term loans in this particular balance sheet example is say 6%.
Okay.
And the what they have to pay to the depositors, the rate they have to pay to the depositors, the savings on savings deposit is say 4%.
Okay.
So now what will be the interest expense, interest income on this loan?
6 rupees.
6 rupees.
Yes.
Similarly, interest expense is also very easy to get.
4
it's rupees 4.
Yeah.
So now the gross profit on this particular bank is rupees 2,
right,
which is the interest
before considering
income
expense.
minus
Sure,
interest expense.
Sure.
Now let us say you already talked about the kind of fixed cost that these banks have to invest in order to develop
deposit franchise. Yeah.
Deposit franchise. So this bank is assumed to have that deposit franchise.
Sure.
And the value of the deposit franchise, which we represented by beta in the previous episodes,
despite
is
my
0.5.
best effort, you had to bring in that term. Okay.
Yes.
So otherwise, khana hazam nahi hota. You don't talk about beta and all of that. Okay, fair enough. I can grant you that much.
So now let us assume that operating cost that the banks spends on developing that deposit franchise is rupees 1.75. So now the net profit of the bank is simply
25
rupees 2.
So those of you who have missed these numbers, just pause for a while and it's very clear. There is a bank which is earning 6 rupees of interest income, 4 rupees of interest expense, 2 rupees its gross profit.
Yes.
It incurs 1.75 on AC, advertisement and all that.
Yes.
So net profit is 25 paise. This is what you're saying?
Yes.
All good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
all
now what
good
happens if
now.
interest rate goes down?
Now suppose the interest rate falls by 1%.
Sure. Okay.
Both interest income and interest expense of the banks will be affected.
Yes.
So now interest income, because these are all short-term loans, will go down by rupees 1 because interest rate has fallen by 1%.
Sure.
So now the interest income becomes rupees 5.
Right.
Interest expense on the other hand, because this bank has a deposit franchise,
right,
the interest expense only goes down by 50 paise.
If that's what you are saying, beta is half.
That is
so.
The
The point you are making is the depositor starts seeing this savings deposit as some kind of a fixed interest asset.
Yes.
Right. For the depositor, it's an asset.
Yes.
So you can't reduce interest rates. You can't reduce also for a lot of deposits.
Yes.
While it's going up, you banks had fun. While going down also, they can't reduce by 1%.
Yes.
So they can only reduce by part of it.
Yes.
So their interest expense will fall only by half. Because assuming that's an assumption we have made.
Yes.
It could be anything. So expense falls by half. Income falls by 1.
By 1.
So gross profit falls by 50 paise. So already profit was 25 paise. They are wiped out.
Yes.
25 paise is gone.
Yes.
Plus, do they have to keep incurring this expenditure? Well, there's 1.7.
Yes. So that 1.75 does not change because that is
fixed expense.
Fixed expense.
Yeah,
so
you can't say I will not give you coffee now. I'll switch off AC. In summer, and then you will lose all loans also.
Yes.
That's not possible. That's what it is. So interest rates go. So having a perfectly matched balance sheet is a risk.
Is a risk.
Okay, I'm going to use this in my class.
Yes.
Okay, maybe we should delete this video so that I can share it in class.
Yes.
Right? This is very interesting. That's what this paper shows.
Yes.
And trust me, a lot of regulators, people who write books in your, they are not aware of it. This is a 2021 paper, and people act as if this does not exist.
Yes.
Right? This is very interesting.
Yes.
And have people started looking at its implications on India? So, let me, I think Indian situation is slightly different, as you know.
Yes.
Because although banks lend for a long period of time, interest rates keep changing.
Yes.
It's flexible interest rates.
Correct.
Right? And deposits anyway are flexible.
Yes.
Right? So, Indian implications are very different. People have started doing some research, right?
Yes,
There is
a paper by Kulkarni and Singh, Nirupa Kulkarni, she is from CAFRAL. So she is working on a paper with a co-author that uses Indian banks status extent of deposit.
And what's the main claim of the paper?
So main claim of the paper is that the infrastructure boom that happened in 2000s was because of the deposit franchise that banks have.
So the infrastructure lending and which led to a crisis this deposit franchise had a direct relation to it,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I don't think we have time to get into the details of the paper. It's still
Yes.
a working paper, and knowing them, these authors, they will surely publish in a good journal.
Yes.
Once it's published, let's try to have them here
Yes.
and discuss this paper. But then look at the implication. You know, this has led to a big crisis in India.
Yes.
That's what the paper shows, and why and how we can discuss later.
Yes.
Right. So now coming to, we have promised our viewers that
Yes.
there are non-academic implications,
Yes.
non-policy implications as well. Right. That is what we promised our viewers.
Yes.
So is there some trading strategy that we can think of? You know,
Yes.
be careful. Our producer is going to put all that line that we are not responsible for your losses.
Yes.
We are not trying to do it tomorrow morning, but at least a way to think about it. Is there something that we can think about here?
Yes. So now there are banks with deposit franchise bank. So now again the viewers can go back and do this exercise. So basically the point is that there are banks with deposit franchise. There are banks with
Less
no
of
deposit, less of it.
Right. How do you
So-
determine that? Maybe you can see how their deposit interest rates change
Yes.
when there is a change in central bank interest rates.
Yes.
The banks which have to change deposit rates close to 1-to-1 have
Yes.
less deposit
Yes.
franchise.
Yes.
Banks that can get away with less change when the interest rate goes up, they have more deposit
Yes.
franchise. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Now I identify these two banks. So what will I
yes, Yes. So now if you expect the interest rate to go up,
do? Right.
say interest rate increases by 1%.
Right.
So now what will happen is banks with deposit franchise,
Uh-huh.
they are banks with so if and suppose in Indian situation, suppose there is the asset liability mismatch, say, is low. Or assets or banks.
So let's
take-
ignore the
yeah.
asset side. Let's say all banks
Yeah.
have similar asset structure, which is loan
Yes,
structure.
yes.
Now, given everything else same, there is a bank with high deposit franchise.
Yes.
There's a bank with low deposit
Yes.
franchise, right? If interest rates were to go up,
Yes.
now which bank will suffer more? The bank with low deposit,
franchise
right?
will suffer
Because they have to pass on the interest rate to the depositor.
Yes, yes.
So bank with high deposit franchise is unlikely
Unlikely
to
to suffer.
So now you have a trading strategy. You
Yes,
can go
yes.
sell this bank and buy this bank,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And it's reverse when interest
Yes,
rate goes
it
down.
reverse when it's interest rate goes
The
down.
bank with high deposit. So something like
Yes.
private bank versus public bank, can we think about? Public banks may have higher deposit franchise. Private banks may
Yes.
be having a
Yes.
lower deposit
Yes.
franchise, possibly.
Yes.
You know, you can at least try this on the data,
Yes.
but at least giving you some ideas, fresh ideas from where people can experiment.
Yeah, right.
And that's the other use of this paper.
Yes.
Right. So to summarize, as I said in the first episode itself, the entire paper is written without any prediction. You know,
Yes.
economists, serious economists, are not sitting there and thinking about what will happen next quarter or the growth rate is going to be 7. That's not papers are about. Papers are about identifying a phenomena,
Yes.
explaining a phenomena, and thinking about implications. You know, we are working on a paper. We'll discuss. This will lead to a lot of research. As I already said, Indian infrastructure crisis could be explained using this.
Yes.
You know, this will give us valuable lessons for future. And this is what I said it right at the beginning. And this is an example of how papers are written and how it is useful. Scholars, but academic papers are written like that. You know, they are for a scholarly
Yes.
audience. And it's assumed, lot of knowledge is assumed. For example, it's assumed that people know what is maturity transformation. You know, it's people will. So that is why that's an attempt that we are trying to make. We are
Yes.
trying to simplify this because it's useful. This is, although it is written for academic audience, it's useful for policy. It's useful for real world. It's useful for just to increase understanding of banking.
Yes.
So that's the whole attempt that we are trying to do with this whole exercise.
Yes.
And we are going to continue this. And Nishant will be let go, and we will have, our producer is already looking for the next PhD student for the next episode. So we are going to discuss policy issue next time. This time it was banking, and let's talk about implications of health insurance maybe. And we are going to come back soon.
Yes.
And we are also going to put all these 3 episodes together into one episode. And the utility of this, unlike this is not a hot topic that we are discussing. You know, the problem with hot topics that you see in a lot of places is that after 15 days it's not very useful. For example, if I did a show or participated in a show on farmer agitation and agricultural reforms and all that, and then they pulled it out, they never showed it because they said it's now not relevant. This is not like that. Yeah. You know, electoral bonds, if you have a discussion now, it's not relevant after 15 days. Yes. There may not be any electoral bonds. This is not like that. This is going to be relevant 5 years from now. We are going to talk papers written in 1970s. I'm not saying this is correct. You know, the thing about science, it's falsifiable. It's with data. You can check, you can test, verify and falsify. That's what science is, right? So that's the beauty of these academic papers. I hope you like this discussion on one paper, and we are going to bring more such papers and highlight their relevance. We are going to simplify, explain and highlight their relevance. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your feedback, and this is not the end of the show. We're going to have more such episodes, the end of this paper. Thank you.